When do we start? Yes. Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, let's go ahead and continue with our next section. This is my family. This is my wife, and you can see my three daughters, Rebecca, Elizabeth, and Talita. And a couple of years ago, I got invited to speak in many places, so we went as a family to 20 countries for the summer. This was my itinerary, just for the summer. And it was very nice to experience, different types of foods and different ways of thinking and different cultures and so forth. And at the same time, we were able to help, multiple places. But because we were gone for the whole summer, a bear came and did a hole in our home and helped himself to some healthy food there in the pantry. And the neighbor noticed something was not right, so they went and did something with that bear, and they kind of put something there to kind of block the hole. And a second bear came and moved that thing that they put there and finished what the other ones didn't finish, So watch out if you leave a home for the whole summer, bears may come in there. Watch out. So reminder, my research is there on that ResearchGate, and the Twitter is that one. I'm going to be citing some of my tweets in the presentation. Look at this very interesting study, how your metabolic health increases your risk of cognitive decline and chronic illness. Someone once said, if you get on the wrong train, be sure you get off at the first stop. The longer you stayed on, the more expensive the return trip is going to cost you. And they're not talking about trains, So if you are in the wrong type of lifestyle, you better get off on the next station and get the train back towards the right direction. This other one on the New England Journal of Medicine. New England Journal of Medicine, one of the best journals in the world. And I'm citing from the study, non-human milk consumption is not essential for human health. By some reason, they have programmed us that, you have to have milk to have, good nutrition and so forth. There's no excuse today. I mean, you can go to the store, there's the soy milk, there's the almond milk, there's the rice milk, there's the coconut milk, and all kinds of different types of milk. Try them and see which one, you like, and, go ahead and stick with that one. So, adverse childhood experiences. And this is something, sadly, that tends to be something quite common in today's world. So these adverse childhood events are things that happen in the past and are affecting the health of many people. For example, there's a subgroup of patients that you try certain things and they're not responding to that therapy. And not until you dig a little bit deeper, you start identifying those adverse child events or experiences, depending who you read. And those ACEs may be present and may be affecting the health of these people. See, there's something called emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence has 5 components. Knowing your emotions, managing your emotions, because it's better to manage your emotions than for your emotions to manage you. So watch out. Also, recognizing emotions in others, because you can either build or destroy emotional bridges, and you can damage a relationship by not identifying those emotions. Managing relationships with others, and People know, the managers, that it is better to hire somebody with high IQ. I have done research on the subject. In this study, we were documenting how emotional intelligence can increase in a matter of weeks. This emotional intelligence is a marker of success, because you're more likely to be, higher if your emotional intelligence is higher. And here you can see that in a matter of weeks, we're able to increase almost 9 points to the emotional intelligence by doing the right changes. This is the magazine Forbes. This is a secular business entrepreneur type of magazine. And look at what they recommend in the magazine. Look for employees with high emotional intelligence over high IQ. Interesting, isn't it? Because, somebody with low emotional intelligence is going to cause many problems. These people are everywhere. In your family, in your church, in your work, in your university. And these are the type of people that start causing trouble. Doesn't matter where they are, they're going to start causing trouble everywhere because of their low emotional intelligence. And finally, motivating ourselves to achieve our goals. So, there's people that, by using that principle of knowing your emotions, as a physician, I had this experience many times. The patient comes and you ask him, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I am fine, they say with the words, but their body language says otherwise. Something is not right, So, knowing your emotions. So, we have a standardized quiz that we can use to identify those adverse childhood experiences or emotions. I'm going to be asking the questions. Don't raise your hand and say, oh, no, it's me. No, don't, in your head, answer the question. Before your 18th birthday, a parent or an adult in the household, often or very often, swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt. Question 2, before your 18th birthday, a parent or an adult in your household pushed you, throw you things, hit you so hard that it had marks and were injured. Before your 18th birthday, did an adult or a person at least 5 years or older try to abuse you? Question 4, before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you, or thought you were not important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Question 5, before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to a physician if you need it? Question 6, before your 18th birthday, was a biological parent ever lost to you through divorce, abandonment, or other reason? Question 7, before your 18th birthday, was your mother or stepmother often or very often push, grab, slap, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes, physical type of abuse, or were threatened with a weapon? Question 8, before your 18th birthday, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Question 9, before your 18th birthday, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? Question 10, before your 18th birthday, did a household member go to prison? So, basically what we're doing with these questions, we are trying to identify those ACEs, which we can classify into 3. You have the group of abuse, which could be physical, emotional, sexual. Neglect, you didn't take care of the needs of that adolescent or child. Or there is household dysfunction. There's somebody in the household, that has mental illness. You lose somebody because they go to jail. The mother is treated violently. There's substance abuse, or one that is quite common today, divorce. And these ACEs, sadly, are things that are very common, and they're usually interrelated. So, the more ACEs somebody has, more likely to have health and social problems. And sadly, there is transmission of them. If you went through them and you didn't deal correctly with them, more likely to start repeating that to the next generations and so forth. And the problem is that these ACEs are like memories that stayed with us, and in certain situations they start triggering and so forth. So these ACEs, we need to deal in a healthy way with them, because as time goes on, if you don't deal correctly with them, it ends up affecting your development, end up affecting your quality of life, end up affecting your mental and physical health, and could be even related to longevity, some studies are suggesting. So, the more of those ACEs, those questions I told you, the more number of positive of them, the more potential problems it can have, but there's things you can do about it. In a person with 4 or more of those adverse childhood events, 2.2 times as likely to have ischemic heart disease, 2.4 times more likely to have a stroke, 1.9 times likely to have cancer, 1.6 likely to have diabetes. Now, this is not a prophecy. This is, if you don't deal with them, then they can start having the issues and so forth. And also, very common, especially in low socioeconomic type of strata, as well as homelessness. Some researchers, sociologists are suggesting that may be a trigger for that homelessness, as people end up in that type of situation. So, even ACEs have been linked to work performance. Because, again, if they're not dealt correctly, many times the person just thinking about this and during their job and so forth, instead of doing their job, so it ends up affecting that. Also, the effect that it can have on those people around them. Sometimes that impairs their ability to perform. And we know that ACEs definitely have an impact on child development. And children, which are supposed to be nurtured and grow and so forth, as they experience those adverse childhood events, well, it ends up affecting their ability to try to adapt to the environments and so forth. So, in America, over half of the children in the U.S. are exposed to violence, crime, and abuse every year. And 26% of the children in America have witnessed or experienced some traumatic event before the age of 4. So, exposure to that violence definitely harmed those children, and those things are carried to adulthood and so forth. And there's lots of money that are spent because of that. So the trauma does not automatically cause the PTSD, but not dealing correctly with that trauma can increase that risk. So this trauma is very common both for boys and girls in the environment that we are living. So if those ACEs are not dealt correctly, sometimes the adolescent end up taking the wrong type of behaviors as a way to anesthetize, that pain and trauma that they're carrying from drinking alcohol, tobacco, sexual promiscuity, using psychoactive materials, overeating, eating disorders, delinquent behavior. And we know that there's definitely a relationship between those ACEs and chronic type of depression. That type of depression that you think, oh, I'm finished, and then it comes back, and it comes back, and it comes back. So in order to help that type of depression, you have to deal with those ACEs in order to solve that depression. And also, self-harm definitely related to those ACEs. And also, it's interesting, the sexual behavior is definitely affected by those ACEs. So, in a study done in America, they run this survey of those 10 questions in a hospital in America, a very well-known hospital network called Kaiser Permanente. That's the name of the hospital network. And these people were mostly white, middle to upper class, college educated. They all had jobs in this healthcare that were good paying jobs. So when they run this survey, very sadly, it was found that these ACEs are very common. 66% of that workforce had experienced at least one of those ACEs. In fact, they found out that usually when there's one of those ACEs, there's high probability it's going to be two or more. In other words, if there was one, there was an 87% probability there was going to be at least a second one or more. And the more of these adverse childhood experiences that had been occurring in the past, the more likely the probability of some sort of long-term effect. In fact, they could relate. The employees that were using lots of the healthcare resources, the employees that were using more the ER, the employees that were getting more in legal type of trouble and so forth, were related to the employees that had most of those ACEs. And this one, very interesting, they could literally predict how much healthcare somebody was using depending on the number of these ACEs. In other words, how many consultations they had to the doctor's office, and how many of unexplained physical symptoms the person had. And here you can see there's some good news. Look at this very interesting study. Plant-based diets help people with ACE increasing their longevity by 4.6 to 6.3 years. So can you see how that healthy lifestyle do make a difference? So especially when the ACEs, have occurred, it is a very good idea to follow that healthy type of lifestyle. So the issue is that when those ACEs are present, the world becomes a very scary place. During the grown-up years, the stability and so forth that the parents were supposed to bring, if it's not there, then, the world becomes a very scary place. And here, very interesting study, childhood trauma impacts muscle function later in life. Researchers uncover a link between adverse childhood experiences and impaired muscle function in older adults. The research involved analyzing muscle biopsies over 870 participants. So how good, your muscle stability and so forth, things, for example, like your balance, are more affected when there are more of those ACEs. Also, loss of danger cues, because the parents that you were supposed to create, those links in which you were supposed to feel safe and you were supposed to trust and so forth. If those links cannot take place, then, you don't see the normal danger cues and you can get yourself hurt much easier. And because those links were not developed very well, the person has trouble trusting in other people. And this is something that can affect, later on the relationships and so forth. So again, by identifying those ACEs, you can deal with this, then the healing can take place, and then the good attachments can take place. And also the shame. The person ends up blaming themselves, for this type of things. Oh, my parents divorced because of me, and this type of things. And they start blaming themselves, which is a blame that is actually not their fault, And also that loss of intimacy. They have problems, opening up emotionally due to those ACEs. And disassociation, and also loss of connection between their body and their physical, and also loss of their self-worth. They think that they're not important, that so forth. Those ideas that are not true. And this is a big problem with ACEs that we need to work with, that reenactment. So the person plays the tape over and over in their head. You think that's good? No, because you experience over and over the trauma. In fact, what studies have documented is that the more you play the tape, the worse you start adding things. Oh, not only did he also did this and this and this and so forth. So even it becomes even more and more painful. So as you were seeing there, the statistics, this is not a prophecy again. This is if we don't deal correctly with these ACEs, then we can get ourselves in trouble. So the issue with the ACEs is that as our body is experiencing those levels of stress, the stress hormones start to secrete stress hormone long term. See, the way that we are designed is that, for example, you're walking and then you see a snake there in the road, your stress hormones go up, and that helps you, move out or try to fight the thing, whatever, either way. But when there is something that is causing long-term stress in your body, then your ability to deal with that stressful situation kind of paralyzes you. Because stress is supposed to get you into action. But because the stress is in a chronic way, that just paralyzes us. So instead of helping us, it's actually hindering us. And not only that, those high levels of stress are going to every single organ in your body. So, for example, your bones, those high levels of stress end up having a negative effect on your bone health. You end up increasing your risk of things like osteoporosis. Your stress like that ends up affecting things like your sleep. So now you're not sleeping good, and because you're not sleeping good, that means you have your nerves, very sensitive and so forth, more likely to get in some sort of argument. So it's this vicious cycle that starts happening over and over that we need to do something about it. So the brain tells the stress glands, hey, release me some stress. And now you start seeing even physical changes, the eyes, the color of the skin, the spasms that start forming at the level of the shoulders, the heart rate starts to elevate, and even your circulatory system starts being affected. Those stress hormones start manipulating the diameter of your blood vessels, and it's just this vicious cycle that happens. The stress is telling your liver, hey, give me more and more glucose. So now you start creating a metabolic dysfunction, and it's just this vicious cycle that starts happening that we need to put a stop on it, because that makes the person feels very bad. They don't sleep good, they don't have energy, they cannot think correctly, clearly, and so forth. So we need to put a stop to this. And sometimes things happen, and one of the best ways that you can deal with this ACEs is to find a therapist that is familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy is something that can help us, re-evaluate things, help us to change the way we think, help us to take responsibility for our own thoughts. This is not about just the blame game. Oh, this happened to me because my grandfather was a very mean person and so forth. He may have been a mean person, but that doesn't solve the problem, isn't it? What are we going to do about it now? So then you start reframing those situations. And in my opinion, if you can add that spiritual element, it works even much better. Because many times you need to forgive, whoever wronged you and so forth. Having that grudge and that hate in the heart and so forth, you think that's good for you? No, isn't it? That just generates even more stress, that even affects your sleep, and there goes the vicious cycle over and over again. So we need to bring that to a forgiveness and say, you know what, they wronged me and so forth, but we're going to leave it there and we're going to come to a peace. So that's why, that spiritual aspect of things can help us find that solution. So in our program, when the patients come to us, almost at the end of the program, as we started dealing with some of the trauma that those patients were coming with and so forth, we have a burning ceremony. So the person, writes down all those things, that they want to put it, to an end and so forth. Maybe, the forgiveness side of things and so forth. So as they write those things, we have this ceremony in which we're going to burn those things. We're going to put a close to that chapter, because it's part of the healing. Sometimes a person is even afraid of dealing with it. But you have to face it. You have to face it. You have to come to a forgiveness. Sometimes it involves making that phone call, writing that email or letter, to have a peace and so forth, and be able to find that peace that we all need. So that's where, that spiritual aspect of things can really help to come to an end. That's why in my book, The Pandemic Busters, you will see that on chapter 22 of the book, that's going to be, if you're interested in this, we deal with that aspect of things, on that peace that we need to have in our hearts. So why do bad things happen to us? I wish I could give you an answer. We live in a very, in a world that is full of problems and so forth. Sometimes those things happen for a reason we may not really understand, but, we need to work with it and keep going, And is, as this poem, very nice poem says, sometimes life seems hard to bear, full of sorrow, trouble, and woe. It's then I have to remember that it's in the valleys where what? Where I grow. If I always stay on the mountaintop and never experience pain, I would never appreciate God's love and would be living in vain. I have so much to learn, and my growth is very slow. Sometimes I need the mountaintops, but it's in the valleys that I grow. I don't always understand why things happen as they do, but I am sure of one thing: my Lord will see me through. My little valleys are nothing when I picture Christ on the cross. He went to the valley of death. His victory was Satan's loss. Forgive me, Lord, for complaining when I'm feeling so very low. Just give me a gentle reminder that it's in the valleys that I grow. Continue to strengthen me, Lord, and use my life each day to share your love with others and help them find their way. Thank you for the valleys, Lord. For this one thing I know: the mountain tops are glorious, but it's in the valleys I grow. And that's the reality, isn't it, of the world that we live in. Sometimes when those troublesome times happen in our lives and so forth, those are the times, in which the growth really takes place. We may be busy in the success and so forth, but when we are in those valleys, the growth starts to take place. So, don't be afraid, to reach out to others. Don't be afraid to use those spiritual resources as you're going through the process of this healing of these ACEs. And I can tell you, I could share many experiences of people that had that background of trauma and so forth in their past, as because of this ACEs, as they came to a peace with this, as they closed this chapter, tremendous growth happened in them, and they actually became a blessing to others. Because now they can understand and they can empathize with others that have gone through those situations. And many times, that's part of their mission now, to be able to help and encourage others as they're going through that healing process for these ACEs. So, if you're still breathing and you're still alive, God may still be working in that heart, to bring that peace so that you can shine as a diamond, as our characters are being refined and changed as we go through that healing process. So as you can see, there's a lot we can do for these ACEs. Try to find, the right resources for you to start growing. And as we continue coming throughout this week, we'll continue adding some of those elements of the healthy lifestyle so that we can have a good, healthy, and happy life. Thank you very much for coming, and we will see you guys tomorrow starting at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.
As we go, I just want to say thank you guys for coming again, as Dr. Eddie has said. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for 2 more very interesting topics. Just want to say thank you again. May God bless you all and have a great night.